for all of us, it's important that we find that key that unlocks the garden for us. And we paid a visit to Cumbria, to a young gardener who at an early age has discovered a real passion for a group of plants which I think it's fair to say are very different to beetroot.
I'm Cody and I'm 19 years old and I live at home with my mum, dad and my older brother. When it comes to planting stuff in the garden, it's got to go through me first before it makes it into the garden. This garden means a lot to me because it's the place where my mum and dad let me just go absolutely crazy with planting, and it's just somewhere where you can come and relax and just enjoy and just kind of forget about what's going on in the world. So the garden's about 40 square metres and we have it divided into two sections, which up here is the top half, which is the tropical outside family area, and then we have the polytunnel down on the bottom, which is very much propagation. I've always loved tropical plants. It all began when I think I was about 10 or 11 when my mum and dad bought me a small little greenhouse, and I was more excited about kind of what grew underneath the soil instead of how the plants grew. So plants would never last very long in the garden before I'd pull them up and have a look what was going on underneath. I've tried to create a space here that's kind of very impact with lots of greens. I absolutely adore kind of different leaf textures, how they bounce off each other. I think layers in a garden are very important because you've got to get different heights, so there's always a point of interest. So the things I think work really well together are the cannas, the lobelia and the artemisia, because they're all different leaf textures, they're all different heights. And also things like the cosmos with the tetrapanax. So in the corner I've got a Melianthus major. This is a really unusual plant. It's quite special. It's got these very silvery leaves on it. They're also evergreen so that they add a little bit of interest through the winter. Bought it as a tiny little plant about 4 years ago. It's got a very, very fantastic red flower, but unfortunately I don't think I'll ever see it just because it doesn't get warm enough here. So for now we'll just have to deal with the silvery leaves. I work at a garden centre. I'm always working with plants, whether or not that's a work aspect or here at home in the garden. I can start and then 6 hours later I realise that it's tea time and I need to go in for my tea. So I've used quite a lot of trees in the garden. I think height's very important because you can always go as high as you wish, but outwards you're a little bit more restricted, so height is always one of those things that you should definitely include in the garden. My dad, he's created his dream pond. It's absolutely huge. It's 8 foot by 8 foot, and it goes down about 5 foot as well. I think water in a garden is just necessary. It just creates a very relaxing atmosphere. So this is an acer I've planted. I planted it here because it also creates a really nice block of greenery here on the edge of the pond, and it also creates quite a lot of nice shadows as well on the water below. The polytunnel's not the bog standard growing veg and tomatoes and cucumbers. I've just filled it with lots of tropicals. Stuff grows extremely rapid in there, so it's created this really big jungle effect. This is a very small area, but we've really kind of rammed the plants in, and I think that's the best way of making a small space look bigger. I have a few dahlias here in the garden, but I usually have those up at my allotment, which is kind of where I go absolutely crazy with dahlias. And up there is just absolute flower power. It's just colouring. So this is my allotment. I grow about 300 dahlias every year in about 19 different varieties, and it's looking absolutely fantastic. So a couple of years ago I was at my local flower show and I approached the local hero Jack Gott, who grows lots of dahlias, and he kind of took me under his wing. He gave me a couple of dahlias one year and I just built up my collection. My allotment's just here, and then just across my shoulder is Jack Gott's allotment. He grows an absolute amazing amount of dahlias and it's only 2 allotments away from me. I always get advice from him and see what's new and see what dahlias he's growing. So this dahlia here, this is Coburn Glow. This is an absolutely amazing dahlia. It's only about 3 years old, but it has this most iridescent red colour, and it has these really nice kind of yellow specks in the centre of the flower here. These dahlias here, I've done a little bit of an experiment this year, so I've left them all in the ground and I didn't mulch them, I didn't do anything over winter, and they have just come back up and they are in their full glory at the moment. The dahlias, they're from Mexico, so they like very free draining soil. The tuber holds most of the moisture, so you don't have to water them too much, even though we've had quite a lot of dry this year. I've not watered them once, and they're still doing absolutely amazing, so it proves that you don't always have to spend hours and hours caring for them. So the common problem with dahlias is that they get eaten by earwigs. So I've done a little experiment this year, and I've got 2 rows of dahlias, and I've rubbed the greasy balm onto one side of the dahlias, and on the next I haven't. And what I've found is that the dahlias that haven't got the greasy product on, they've been eaten, and the ones that have, they've all been absolutely okay. When I've seen that they've eaten a couple of dahlias, it gets me very annoyed, because it ruins the perfect form of the dahlia. The one thing about dahlias that are amazing is that they carry their flower from around about August time till the end of the year as well, so they'll go straight until the first frost. It's always one of those things that people miss this time of year, is a bit of colour in the garden, and they're just such a good doer. So this is a cactus type dahlia, and it's known as Kiwi Gloria. I normally put these into a bouquet just to kind of lower the tone of the bunch with all these very vivid oranges and yellows. So if I was to plant this into the garden, I would put it into a more of a sheltered area just to protect it from the rain and the wind, as they do get battered quite easily. I will always have dahlias in my gardens. It's just one plant that I've fallen in love with and I'll always have to grow.
Clearly Cody was born to garden, and it's very impressive the knowledge and the dedication that he has at 19. But I also like the fact that older gardeners are steering him and giving him advice and inspiration, and he's gaining from that, and they're being inspired by him. It's a good story all around.
I couldn't live without plants. I don't know what I'd do. I absolutely love plants.